All right, guys, really quick. So I was talking to you guys last week about creating a maglev for my monster rotor, and the rod I had in there was steel. And the comments I got, especially from Sky Collection, was you cannot use steel in a maglev. And he's right, you can't. It's too much interference. It would be impossible to, yeah, it's just too much. So I ordered stainless steel. At least I thought it was non-magnetic stainless steel. But as you can see, it is definitely magnetic. So that's no good. So then I ordered carbon fiber rods. These are hollow. Yeah, these are hollow. Focus you. Anyway, these are hollow carbon fiber, and they fit perfectly in the center there. I ordered them to be, I believe it was 8 millimeters on the OD, and they have a 6 millimeter ID. And then I 3D printed these little end caps where the magnet will fit on, and they and then in turn fit in there. Now I'm not going to use these because obviously they will heat up and melt as it's spinning, but it gives me an idea on how to build the rod for this guy. And I'm going to use brass. I'm going to use a brass rod that's going to be shaped just like this. This way, when I get the, where is it? When I use the big ring magnet, and I can't do it here, but anyway, I can then adjust where I want this to sit, so to speak, so that I can then adjust it so that it will fit inside this ring perfectly and sit up against a small glass backing or backstop, if you want to call it that. And so what I was thinking, and I've not seen anybody do this yet, but instead of having, so if this was the rod, and let's say this was brass, and here's my magnet, and then we have the ring around here, and that would sit up against there, and of course the magnetic pressure would, or the force would push it up against there, and there would be one on the opposite side, you know, doing the same thing, kind of. One is always a little bit off, but that's okay. And for the most part, it'll support it very much like this guy does. All right. So very much like this guy does, where it's sitting on one side. I can actually move it to either side and it stays floating, but I'm going to use the ring. But I was thinking, instead of doing that, if I set it up as such, where I had one ring here and then another ring here, and had it set up so they were in opposite poles, would this little magnet then sit in between them and hold itself there, so that I wouldn't have to have, where is it? I wouldn't have to have this guy here at all. So in other words, the way I have this one set up is I have everything facing out. All poles are facing out. So all south poles are facing out, or all north poles are facing out, which then allows this guy to sit suspended, right? Well, instead of that, instead of having this backer here, I have one ring here and one ring. So I'd have, yeah, I think you guys get it. I'd have one ring here and one ring here. And so this guy here would be in between those. Hopefully, if I could set it up properly, it would be in between those, suspended on both sides. So instead of 2 rings on either side, I'd have 4 rings. I'm just not sure if that would work, but it's definitely worth a try. So I would have it set up like this with the poles both facing out. Actually, yeah, I would have it set up so all poles are facing out, with this ring and this ring, all south facing this way, with this magnet south facing that way. And it should, in theory, suspend itself in between these two, unless I have to turn one of the magnets around. Yeah, I might have to do that. I'm not really 100% sure on that yet. But this is the idea. But I also had a thought. So this is a carbon fiber rod. It's pretty stiff. And it should go in here. Come on. I should have did this beforehand. It should go in here, no problem. Let me see if I can get it to go through. Where's my little hammer? Actually, I don't want to use a hammer. I want to use a wooden dowel. And then, so I would cut it to length, probably somewhere around like that. I don't know that this will be stiff enough. Maybe it will, because what I was going to do is, before I set this up, I was going to pour some resin down inside there to give this a little bit more rigidity. But this is pretty stiff, and it's nice and straight. So I think it'll be all right the way it is. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Or, better yet, I can get a 6mm brass rod, because I'm going to use brass anyway, and put the brass rod down inside here, which will stiffen it up. This is not heavy, because I did not pour resin in this. This is all plastic with 6 4-inch by half-inch by half-inch magnets in here. This is a monster rotor. And unfortunately, the stainless steel I got, although it's beautiful and straight, is magnetic. And we know that that's not going to work. So what I may do is, I also got some solid carbon fiber rods, but these are not long enough. At least I don't think they're long enough. I want them to stick out at least that much on either side. I don't know what a good ratio would be. This is obviously way too long. So probably like 3/4 of that would work. Yeah. So I may cut this to length and also get this one going and put resin in one and a brass rod in the other. I'm not really sure yet. I have a brass rod, but I have a feeling it's 4mm, not 6. And I definitely need, if I'm going to put it inside here, I need it to fit tight. All right, anyway, let me see what I can get going. Yeah, so doing some quick experimenting, I would have to put the 2 outer rings with the poles facing each other like this. And so in theory, this middle guy should be locked. See, it's locked in there. So in theory, that should work. So I need to order 2 more of those rings and pretend this is a ring, a larger ring. This is a larger ring. And this guy is connected to this rod. And in theory, I should be able to make a maglev without any backing walls. yeah, that should work. That should work really well. But I have a feeling that once I go for it, I'm going to have to go all the way, because I'm going to have to build the frame for the maglev, kind of like I built this one, because I can't really build it using, let me put these magnets back. I can't really build it using PLA. I can't really print it. I mean, I can, but it would take forever because I'd want to print it with 100% infill. But I'd really like to do that, because then there would be literally zero friction. No friction, because it wouldn't be sitting up against, it wouldn't be sitting up against a glass backing like that. It would, the only friction would be air friction and any type of magnetic friction from the two rings, but that's non-existent. It would mostly just be air friction. So yeah, what I may do is I may build the base frame itself based on this size, which is the original rod I had in here. I've already measured this, and I'll cut it to that size. I'm going to have to order, the brass I have is what I suspected. It was 4 millimeters. I need to order 6 millimeter brass rod. Not so much to fit through there, but so I can make, because I 3D printed these guys as a design for the backing, for it to sit up against the glass. Now, this might work, but it would probably over time melt from the speed, unless I didn't have it going so fast. Maybe not. Maybe this will work. At least for a test, it could work. But I still have to order the rod, the brass rod. So I think that idea of having the two rings, no backing, because without, making the backing, making this part of the, oops, my magnet came off of here. Making this, that's why this is sitting down so low. Here, let me see, there we go. In making this, the hardest part was making these backer plates, because they had to be the exact right distance. And that was just a real pain in the ass. If I didn't have to do that, I would just have to make the base, 2 stands. I'd have to figure out the distance for the magnets to sit, which I don't think is going to be that big of a deal. I made these on the 3D printer, and those magnetic rings fit in there perfectly. I can have, and I'm going to back it up with 3/8 inch acrylic. So I'd have one here, and then the rod would sit in the middle there with that magnet in the middle, and it should be suspended on both ends, and it should lock it in place. If anybody thinks that's not going to work, let me know why. I think it will work, because it's no different than what I just showed you with the 3 little magnets. So yeah. So this guy, this ring, this magnetic ring, here, let me get this out of the way, because these things are going to start flying all over the place. These rings fit inside here nicely. I got to press them in, but they fit in nicely. And if I had one here, and then I had the other one here pushing against it, or I forgot how I had that set up. Anyway, I'd have it so they would be like this, and then I can feel the force there, and then have that one in the middle there. That should work really well. Oops. Be careful, man. I get pinched by these freaking magnets. It hurts like a bastard. I think I cracked a rib. So I was on the job the other day, and I fell. And it was ridiculous. The way I fell was so ridiculous. I was hopping over something that was about as high as my work table. And, you know, trying to be all cool. And when I got on top of it, I went to jump off or to hop off. And I tripped and I flew through the air like Superman for like 5 feet, at least 4 feet off the ground. And I knew I was in trouble. So I turned my head and hit the ground as if I was being tackled in football. And when I did, I think my arm went into my rib cage. And about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I cracked a rib on my right side. And I think I cracked the same one. Anyway, that's a little more information you probably need to know. But yeah, so tell me what you think about that idea. I think it's going to work. So let me see if I can get a test rig set up with the 2 ring magnets that I have to see if in fact it can lock it in between those 2 so that I don't need a backer plate. Sky Collection, if you're watching this and you hear what I'm saying and you understand what I'm saying, I have the 2 ring magnets here. I'll have this guy in between those 2 ring magnets and hopefully situated in a way where the fields all repel each other and it gets locked in there on this side and on this side. Very much the way this does, but without this. So 2 rings here, 2 rings here, lock it in there. All right, let me know what you think. So I have another question for you guys. So this was the rod that I had in there, and it's much bigger than this. And so I'm thinking, that was the rod I had in there. I'm thinking I should probably go with a longer rod because the magnets in here are strong, and those 2 ring magnets are going to be very strong. And so I don't want these magnets interfering with the ring magnets and causing it to not even be able to sit in the housing itself or go into the... So maybe I should, not this long, obviously, but maybe, yeah, maybe that long. So let me grab the ring magnet and take one off of here. Oh, actually, there'll be 2 of them. And so let me see when this starts to interfere with that. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, actually, it doesn't mess with it at all because of the way they're magnetized. I mean, it would mess with it, but I could make it shorter. Okay, so that's not going to be an issue. But I think I'll still make it this long because this is a big rotor. All right, I seem to answer my own question. Ciao. So here's the acrylic base I got. It's 3/8 by 24 inches by 12 inches. I'm not going to use this whole thing, obviously, but I wanted the 24-inch wide to give me plenty of room. And then I made this on the 3D printer because at first I was going to put a piece of glass on the back of this here, like that, and then this is like a box, and I made like a little edge. This would then seal together like this, snap together. The magnet would go in there, and then this guy would go there. I made different size boxes because I didn't know how much room I was going to need for that magnet. But if my new thing works out, then it would be something like, pretend this has magnets in it. It would be something like, if I can freaking do this, it would be something like this, where the magnet would float. So it should be able to float right there like that between the two ring magnets. And of course, there'll be a little ring magnet on this guy. So I won't need a backing for this. I think that's going to work. But again, I got to test it. I cut this down to the right size. So this should be good. It may be a little bit too long. Yeah, I'm thinking that might be a little bit too long. So I should probably cut it down. This is definitely too short, but I think this might be too long. That's kind of long for a maglev. I think the longer it is, the more unstable it'll be as it's spinning, right? If I give it less room to be unstable. So I've got two of these. So I'll leave this one at that height. This one I'll make about that big. Yeah. This one I'll make the same length as this one here, because I think that is a good length. That is a good length, right? Because we already saw that the ring magnets won't interfere with the rotor magnets. And if I have one there, and then I have one there, and you guys can't see that. If I have one there and one there, it'll be sitting kind of like that. And it should work. Yeah, I'm getting excited. It should work. So I have to figure out what size to make this. I'll probably cut this right in half this way and just use half of this. And I'll use 3/4 of the length. All right, let me get cutting. God, I hate cutting acrylic. So I'm still debating on whether I should fill this with resin or put a aluminum or brass rod in there. So this is the size I'm going to go for. This cover came off. I got to glue it back on. But it seems pretty stiff. Now, obviously, it's going to be going a lot faster than what I'm spinning here. But it's nice and straight. And so I don't know if I really need to go to that extra length to stiffen this up or to make it heavier. I don't know if under higher speed it'll give more. I mean, this is carbon fiber. It's pretty rigid. Here's the little piece I cut off. I cannot bend this no matter how hard I try. So I think by virtue of how it's made, it's going to be straight. Again, I got to glue that on there. But and the little magnets would go right there, the little ring magnet. And then obviously it would sit in between this magnet and this one right here like that. It would probably be closer, probably more like this and like this to really lock it in there. I made these things fit really nice too. So I got to glue this back on, which I'll do now. I don't think it'll hurt if I put resin down inside there to make it a little stiffer. I don't know. What do you think? So I've been running some rudimentary tests, seeing if this guy will lock itself in between these two rings depending on how I orient it. And so far, it hasn't been working out. But I got to remember that I'm only doing one side here. And I know this looks like this is bent. That's just a weird camera angle. It's actually straight up and down. So this is repelling. And, oh, wait a minute. Let me get... Ah, come on, come on. So if I push this through like that, and then see, it does float in the middle there. It does float in the middle there. But I don't know how stable that would be. Now, it was floating because this wasn't locked. Everything would be locked together. But I didn't want to lock it together because I just didn't want to lock it together. But maybe I should. But because I'm only doing it on one side, see, it does kind of float there in the middle. But I don't know how stable that would be. Again, I'm only doing it on one side. So far, it's not what I thought it would do. But let me know your thoughts. Ciao. So here's the idea really quick. And I'm doing this in case somebody has a better suggestion. So I would be backing this up with some thick acrylic. And of course, there'd be a hole in there for the, there would be a hole the same size as the ID of the ring magnet. And I'd have one on both ends, and then the backer plate. But if I choose to do the double ring method, then I would simply cut a hole in that acrylic and then put the second ring magnet on the other side of that. Now, I don't know if that's the right distance or if it would have to be bigger. Maybe I'd have to put 2 pieces of acrylic, probably. Or should I just stick with the tried and true setup like this? You know, with a backer plate, using a piece of mirror or a piece of glass or a nice hard piece of stainless or something. And then, of course, this guy, see if I can get it in there. Oops, it fell over. Anyway, like that. And, of course, I've got that guy sitting there glued up because the one piece fell off of it. I don't know, is this the one I'm going to use or is it the other one I'm going to use? I'll figure it out. Anyway, let me know if you think that the double magnet thing will work. I'm starting to have my doubts. God, I hate cutting acrylic. I'm completely acrylic dustified. And of course, I didn't wear a face mask like an idiot. But gotta love my Wen bandsaw. I have actually nothing but Wen equipment. I have a Wen drill press, a Wen belt and disc sander, a Wen bandsaw. I have a Wen drum sander over there. So if I'm not building my own tools, like that little belt sander back there and my disc sander right there, if I'm not building them, I'm buying Wen. It's not top of the line, but it's not junk either. So, I mean, you know, to each their own. Some people may think Wen is garbage. Other people may think it's great. I think it's good for the price. You know what I mean? It's not a Makita or a Milwaukee, which I have. That's a Milwaukee portable bandsaw that I made a stand for when I'm cutting metal. It's pretty cool. And I have one Harbor Freight tool. This little tiny, quick and dirty grinding wheel. I have a bigger grinding wheel over there, again, Wen. So Wen, if you're watching, hey, you know, anyway, of course not. Ciao. All right, so yeah, so back to the question. Let me know, should I stick with the tried and true, or should I give this double one a chance? And I'm thinking that I would have a better chance of the double if I used 2 magnets on the end instead of the one, and each of those magnets with like poles together, creating a really good lock. I don't know. Let me know what you think.